Guys, can we hear me? Looks like we got 7 of us in here. I've been having technical difficulties trying to get this all set up. I was going to use my DSLR and my external mic, but it does not want to work with this stupid MacBook computer. So, using the built-in webcam and microphone because that is all it wants to take and use. So, here we are. So, hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully the video quality is not total crap from this webcam built into the MacBook. I can hear you. Yep, we can hear you. Everything looks good. All righty, good to go. So, and today has been one heck of a day. It started off, me and my girlfriend went down to my farm to do some work, and we found a cat that was near death. So we have been nursing him and took him to the emergency vet today. And that was what basically wrecked the entire day of me finishing editing the video I had planned for the day to upload and some work I need to get done on my property. So here we are doing a live stream. Now, I know a lot of you have asked over the last week my thoughts about Subaru killing off the STI. And I don't think that I can actually sit down and make that a video without blowing my top. So I'm going to touch on that here during the live stream, talk to you guys one-on-one with the live stream in real time, instead of sitting in front of a camera and ranting. So we're going to try to have that conversation today, and then later on we'll open up into some questions. So let's look at the chat real quick. We got 79 people in here. Hello to everybody. Luckily, the cat seems to be doing okay, which I'm really glad about. So Subaru killing off the STI. Now, Subaru has been doing stupid things, in my opinion, for quite a while now, and they have gone further and further away from their diehard fan base that built them from the nothing company they were to where they are today. Slowly but surely, they've gone more and more mainstream, and they have, as I said, neglected the core group that built the company to where it is, those loyal buyers that bought the cars during their years where they weren't tested, where they weren't having the lineage that they have now through the 70s, 80s, 90s, even the early 2000s. Now they're at the point where their cars are basically cookie cutter. Looking at the Legacy, looking at the Outback, it's now like a crossover SUV and a regular midsize sedan. The Legacy blends right in with Honda Accord, Toyota Camry, and the like. The Outback blends right in with the crossovers of its segment. It's no longer just the station wagon that was jacked up with four-wheel drive. So Subaru has been doing away with things that customers have wanted for a long time, getting away from the turbocharged Forester XT, going away from manual transmission options. If you got a manual transmission, you got a base model like on the Crosstrek. You can't get a limited or an upscaled model with the 6-speed. They don't want you to have that. They want you to get a CVT if you want nice leather interior and all of the power options. If you want a manual transmission, and you get the base model, that kind of stuff. And I understand from a business standpoint why they're doing this kind of stuff, why they're making these decisions. But this whole push and shift now to the EV, I know that Toyota has a big hand in this because they own like 20.2% of Subaru. I know that's part of this, but the issue is, most of the other car companies still have their top line brand. But during an interview sometime between last Friday when that memo came out about the STI's death, and now I think they sat down with Road and Track or Car and Driver, one of the others, and one of the lead guys like, we're not going to create a new internal combustion engine based on the 2.4 for the STI when it's going to have little to no shelf life, meaning that if they put all that money in developing the STI chassis to go with the WRX chassis that we already don't like, the entire Subaru group basically, community has crapped all over the new WRX. It's really not that much different than the VA chassis, but they changed it just enough to bastardize it where people don't want it. And they've had a ton of backlash about that car. So I can understand, why are we going to put the money in formulating an STI on the chassis they already have showed hatred for and do not want? So I could understand that aspect of it. The other aspect is, we're going to build a car, formulate this car that's not going to have a shelf life because we're going to go all electric in like 2-3 years. There's a big issue with all these auto manufacturers right now that say, oh, in the next 5 years, by 2025 or 2030, we're going to be EV only, no more internal combustion engine. EVs are okay. If you want to buy an EV, that's perfectly fine. If you want to go buy a Tesla, that's perfectly fine. But them mandating that they're going to switch everyone, all new cars to EV is just not feasible. There's no way. We don't have the infrastructure in this country to support it. We don't have enough charging networks. Our power grid cannot handle it. The amount of green, destruction they do by strip mining this lithium, the finite amount of lithium we have to make these car batteries, EVs are not going to be the future long term. I just don't see it from the facts and information we have at present time. Now, if they move away from lithium ion battery packs and they go to some of these new formulations and solid state batteries and all this stuff, maybe we got a chance of it. The problem is that these battery packs are still going to be toxic waste. They're going to be e-waste when they're done. You can't do much with these lithium battery packs. Right now, if a modern internal combustion engine in vehicle, you can melt down that aluminum engine block and aluminum heads. You can melt down the chassis. You can recycle a ton of a modern vehicle. You can't do much with the plastics, but the rubber products and the metals and all that good stuff, you can do a lot to recycle. Those battery packs, you're not going to be able to recycle really well. All of those circuit boards, PCBs, all of the modules in EVs, you're not going to have a good time recycling. It's not worth the effort to do because it's so costly to recycle that kind of material. Same with the drive motors. I mean, there's just so much not green about the EV cars. I just think it's a farce that they're going to shelve the STI to go to an all EV deal. Sure, if you want to offer an electric STI, I'm sure that it will sell to some buyers, but the majority of STI buyers are not going to want an EV. And the majority of people in this country do not want EVs. It's just, again, it's all too rushed and too big of a push. And my video on the STI was going to go from talking about the STI and talking about the electrification to ranting about EVs and the fact that we just don't have the infrastructure in this country to support mass influx of EVs in the next handful of years. We just can't do it. Now, I'm sure, we're not all going to switch to EVs overnight. There will be new EVs sold and there will be internal combustion engine vehicles on the road. But at some point, there's going to be a convergence where the EVs would start overtaking the amount of ICE vehicles on the road, internal combustion engine vehicles. How much gasoline are we still going to be producing? Like, there's just too many issues. There's too many questions here. And you also got to think about all the industries that going all electric is going to hurt. All of your quick lube places, all that stuff's gone. Gas stations, all that stuff's going to go away. Yeah, you'll have charging stations now, but all the infrastructure of all these gas stations, all these little service stations, all of the parts stores, because most of these EVs are not going to be something that you can DIY repair like you can with modern vehicles. You're going to need all these specialized programs and all this computer stuff. You're going to need an electrical engineering degree to go in there and find the modules and things. Like, there's going to be a huge shift in our economy to support going all electric. Now, a more feasible switch would be going to hydrogen fuel cells or some other middle ground, more hybridization, more other combustible fuels, I think would be a better way to maybe get to all EV at the point where the batteries get better or they switch to something that's not lithium ion based battery packs. Now, again, I don't have facts and figures in front of me. This is just the information I've gathered over the years, my point of view. Some of you may agree. Some of you may absolutely think I'm an idiot. It is what it is, but that's my aspect, my outlook on it as of right here, right now, today, what some of these companies are talking about. Because if I remember right, I think GM said they were going to be all EV by 2025 or 2030, which is not that far down the road here at 2022. And I just don't see how GM and Ford are going to accomplish this goal. But again, I'm not on the board of GM or Ford. I don't know where they're at with any of this stuff. it's just, I don't see the feasibility in it. Even when you're looking at the modern EVs we have now with Teslas and other EVs, talking about the power grids, we can barely keep our air conditioners running in the summertime over in California and Texas. We can't support everybody plugging in an electric car every night and charging it. The power grid just can't handle that kind of current. It can't handle that kind of flow. We would have to super uh, we'd have to just go through basically our entire power grid and up it. There'd be more power stations. Um, the whole we'll plug it in as electric thing. Yeah, but it's still being powered by a coal burning power plant or a nuclear power plant. Yes, some of it's hydroelectric, some of it's wind turbines, some of it is green energy, but a lot of it's still burning fossil fuels. There's a lot of places where there's Tesla superchargers and there's a nice little facade beside it, but there's diesel generators powering those Tesla chargers to supplement the power grid. So it's just asinine, in my opinion, some of this the way it is. And I know politics plays into that, and I try not to get in that on this channel, but like, I don't know. Subaru is now moving in a direction where I don't want to really be working on, like, if they go all EV, I'm done. Like, I'll continue to support working on Subarus, the modern cars, the older cars, you know, through the 80s, 90s up until current times. But when they start going all hybrid and EV, like, I'm pretty much out. I'm done. I don't have any desire to keep working in this field if we go all electric. There's just no incentive for me to stick around working on EVs. I'll work on ICE vehicles as long as they're around until the government mandates that you can't drive them anymore or they stop pumping gasoline. You know, that'll be that. But like, if this is the direction that all car companies are going in, like, I see a lot of people in this industry that aren't going to stick around for it. But again, if this is what comes in, a lot of people are going to be pushed out of this industry anyway. It's just how it's going to change the dynamic of so much around transportation. But anyway, that's my rant about that, you know, about EVs and the death of the STI. I think it's kind of asinine. But then if you look at it, like, GM is discontinuing the Camaro, Dodge is discontinuing the Charger, the Challenger. Like, all of these cars that we have loved for so many years are going away and probably never going to come back as we know them as they are. This has kind of been the last boom, the last hurrah for a lot of auto manufacturers with like the Hellcats and the ZR1 Corvettes and like the ZL1 Camaro, all this high-end stuff, the Shelby Mustangs, like all this stuff is probably about to be gone in the next couple of years. And like, we have to enjoy it while it's here because, you know, the way that the plan and the way the world's working, like, that's just the way they're going, and we're along for the ride, whether we like it or not. I mean, we can only vote with our dollar bill so much before we cannot have any effect on these companies or what they do. So, you know, Subaru's decided to kill the ST off early. It was going to happen eventually if they push all EV. So, I mean, it just sucks that it's now, you know. We were all gung-ho waiting for the next generation STI, looking for a FA24 STI, you know, breaking that 300 horsepower mark. So many metrics we were looking for the new STI to finally push that next stage. And like, we're probably never going to see now. If we see another STI, it'll likely be some electric little everything else on the road, just with a different badge on it. You know, it's just going to be, well, what motor have you got on yours? What motor controller do you have on yours? How many amp hours are your battery cells? You know, that's going to be the new like bragging rights. And it bores me. I don't have interest in that, but that's just me. So let's go look through the comments. As I was rambling on, I really didn't check you guys' comments. I kind of just blurted it all out. So let's go back and see what some of your comments were along the way, talk back and forth about that, and then we'll open up just some regular Q&A as we normally do on the live stream. So let's scroll back here. I know that a lot of people commented. I think I missed a super chat somewhere in there. So let's see what we got. Yeah. Quote from Mr. Schwab. Yes, I agree on Toyota has a big hand in the situation, but you would think that Toyota would give Subaru free reign, such as to go ahead and remake the SVX, etc. I could see them doing an EV SVX. I could also see them never doing it again because it was such a tainted car from their perspective that it was never a success. They lost money on every single one they sold in the US. Like, I don't know. I think that the people that would like to see the SVX come back is too small of a number for them to actually focus on, unless they just brand it as some new super futuristic EV. I could see them maybe doing something like that and have it totally stand away from the old SVX. But yeah, that's another thing with Toyota. Like, I don't understand some of Toyota and Subaru's dynamic. The fact that Toyota won't let Subaru run the D4S system on all of the Boxer engines, not just the BRZ. You know, they can only run on the BRZ and the GT86 now. That would help so much with the carbon issues if they would run that same system on the WRX or the Outback Legacy, any of the other cars. It's literally a bolt-on manifold. They've already got the programming for it. It wouldn't cost them any more development to put that system on other vehicles and save maintenance costs. But at the end of the day, manufacturers don't want to save you on maintenance costs. They want to have you come back to the dealership and pay them for services because they make the money in the service departments. They don't make it on the dealer lots. You think he will ever shave his beard? I've contemplated it several times, but I know I will instantly regret it. So I have not been clean shaven probably since I was 18, 19 years old, and I'm quickly approaching 35. So I've considered it several times, but I know every time that I trim it up any bit is instant regret. So probably not going to happen, but you never know. They should make trucks and Jeeps. I doubt we'll see a truck from Subaru. If we ever do, it'll likely be some Tacoma or Tundra rebrand, kind of like the new Solterra and the BZ4X or BX4, whatever the stupid Toyota EV is now. It'll be something like that. They'll just swap badges more than anything. Let's see. Love their mini trucks. Yeah, if you're talking about the Sandbar, the K trucks, I mean, Subaru doesn't even make those anymore. They're now rebranded Daihatsu Hi-Jets. Subaru stopped making the actual Sandbar in Japan in, I believe, the mid 2000s. I believe might have been earlier than that, but now the modern Subaru Sandbar is just a rebadge. It's Daihatsu Hi-Jet. If you look at the two side by side, it's only a Daihatsu Hi-Jet with a Subaru emblem. It's got the same Daihatsu. I think it's a 3-cylinder, and it's mid-mounted. It's no longer using the Clover 4 inline 4 rear-mounted engine. The writing was on the wall when they went together into the BRZ GR86. Yeah, GR86. I forgot. It's no longer the GT86. They had to change in that. We went from FRS to GT86 to GR86. I don't understand the Toyota changing the name of that model so many times over the years. I mean, I understand the FRS because they killed Scion off, but still. Going to buy an STI. Yeah, before the prices skyrocket. That's another thing to think of. Like, anyone that's got like a very clean US spec 2004 STI, that price probably shot up to whatever they wanted to ask for it after that memo dropped on last Friday. So yeah, if you guys want STIs, you better be looking for them soon because the price is only going to go up from here. I can pretty much assure you that. Bingo on the infrastructure. We haven't built new power plants in years. That's very true. We don't have the ability to power these electric vehicles. The power lines would literally be glowing on the on the poles, pulling that kind of power, that kind of ampere. I know they really wouldn't because there's breakers and transformers would blow before that. But yeah, it's like we don't have the ability. Think hydrogen electric is the future. I do too. We need some kind of interim shift. We can't go straight internal combustion engine to straight battery EV. We need to go more hybridization, more exploration of hydrogen fuel cells, something like that. We need some kind of lead over. We can't just flip the light switch and, all right, no more gasoline, electric only. It can't work. Just it's impossible to make it work that way. And I know a lot of people think that it can. It will go up in price. Yeah, the STI is definitely going to go up in price. I'm glad someone agrees with me on that. I'll wreck the EV one first for science. Hydro is the future. Man, I couldn't agree more. I saw one on fire. Very hard to put out. Yeah, there has been a whole lot of cases about the Teslas and fires and the fact that they have an ungodly amount of issue trying to put fires out on these things, because if the fire department is not equipped or not knowledgeable on how to put out an electrical fire with lithium ion, you can't just go fight that fire like you're fighting a regular fire. You can't go up there and just spray water on it. If I remember right, you need some kind of chemical foam fire suppressant for those kind of electrical fires. I'm no fire expert, but I know that you can't just spray water at it. That's an issue. And there's actually been several cases of people burning to death in their Teslas because part of the system was damaged and the electronic locks and door handles stopped working and they couldn't get out of the car and burned to death in the car, which would be a horrible way to go. But there's all those kind of things you got to think of. Like, yes, touchscreens are cool and like all the technology and smartphones and tablets and all this stuff is great, but like you put too much of that stuff in a car and you have issues like this. Having a mechanical door latch with an actual cable or a rod to a locking mechanism would have saved those people in those Teslas. But the fact that it's all electronic switch and actuator and relays and modules and stuff to get doors, like, you're going too far. It's just too much stuff to break. I kind of hate the way I'm sounding like now. I sound like Scotty Kilmer with all the damn technology and computers and cars. There's too much. But it really is getting to the point where, all right, there is a sweet spot where this is enough technology for me in a vehicle, and this is just too much. And this is actually causing trouble. This is causing problems. The problem with putting too much technology in vehicles is it dates the vehicles. If you look at older vehicles, some of them, that we say are timeless, is because most of the stuff is bare electronics, manual control, something that you could get in 50 years from now, and everything could still work on it. But you look at something modern with like Android Auto or Google or whatever the heck it is, Apple CarPlay, Android, all the touch screens and the widgets and the slider bars for your HVAC and all that stuff, and no more buttons and no more physical controls. All that stuff gets very dated. If you look at even higher end cars like Mercedes and BMW that were doing sat nav, navigation, all that stuff integrated in the radios, just even in the early 2000s, God, that's 20 years ago to think about. But it just looks so old and so dated, and like the technology looks horrible. It makes the car look worse because of how dated the technology is. Technology absolutely dates vehicles. That's another thing we have to worry about with this. Software updates and worrying about hacks into the thing and worrying about the kill switch that, like the other day, Tesla, he can go in and he can cut off the chargers. He can cut off the cars where they don't work anymore. There was some bill going through the Senate or the House the other day where by like 2024 or 2025, all vehicle manufacturers had to have like a kill switch in the vehicle where they could cut it off at any point in time. It's in some kind of legislation. I don't recall exactly where or what the name or number was on the bill, but that's a thing. Like, we got to think about this kind of stuff, and it's getting to a scary point. And with electric vehicles, it just gets worse because there's more control over those that manufacture it than those that own it. And at that point, it's like, do I really own this piece of equipment, or am I just leasing it? Because at the end of the day, you have all the controls for it. You can turn it on, turn it off, do whatever you want to it wirelessly through the internet or what have you. But say you got a 1985 Dodge truck that's carbureted and all mechanical, that is your vehicle. You can do what you want to it. No one controls it but who's in the driver's seat. With modern cars, it's not that cut and dry. So another thing to be worried about with this push for technology and electrification and all that stuff. Bicycles are the future. Yeah. Unless you live out in the country like I do, and it takes you like a 30-minute drive on 60-mile-an-hour highway to get anywhere. If you live in the city, yeah, bicycles are great. I ride a bike. I haven't rode in a while, but I ride for the fun of it, not really so much for transportation, just because of where I'm at. I'm a tech specialist for Subaru, and you're definitely staying away from focusing on, they're definitely staying away from focusing on improving areas of the cars that matter most. It's sad. I started 7 years ago, and it's a huge difference now. Yeah, like they're so worried about all the new infotainment screens and all this new technology. Same thing we're talking about, but like, the nuts and bolts stuff, the mechanicals, like the QC issues, like with the new FA engines, with the coming in with leaking timing chain covers and leaking oil pans because they're not quality control checking the robots, putting the RTV silicone on these parts in the engine manufacturing plant. I've seen lots of issues on the newer cars with quality control that they didn't have 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It seems that the build quality is going down, and it's not just Subaru. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not just crapping on Subaru. It's all manufacturers, nearly all manufacturers' product. Overall, it looks nice. It looks shiny. It looks modern. It looks like old technological wizardry. But the actual nuts and bolts of it, they're getting worse at manufacturing them, worse at putting them together. We can kind of blame the pandemic and stuff and everything around 2020, the shutdowns and stuff, and the shortages and supplies and stuff. But it was really before that it started. It's been more exacerbated here over the last 2-3 years, and now more and more people are starting to see that it's an issue. EVs just move the source of pollution, and green energy ain't green. Very true. Yeah, but what are we going to do in 50 years when we're out of oil? We are at the point where we got to move on. We do, but again, we go from drilling and refining oil to strip mining for lithium that is a much more finite resource. I saw a video the other day. I don't know how accurate, how factual information it is, but it talked about the estimated tonnage of lithium on the planet. And essentially that if we started making all EV production, all new cars EVs by 2030, that by 2040, we could likely be out of lithium to make lithium ion battery packs for these cars. So they'd have to go to something other than lithium ion very soon. You still have to deal with all the e-waste of the spent battery cells. You still have to deal with all the e-waste of the vehicle once it's done. Like, you're shifting the pollutant. You're lessening you're not really lessening again. You're shifting tailpipe emissions for power plant emissions and mining emissions and e-waste once you're done. You're not really creating any kind of betterance. You're just pushing around where it's coming from and where it's going. There was a article I read last week that came out from Volvo, and Volvo did an in-depth study on their production of, I believe it was the CX-70 or CX-90. I'm not familiar with Volvo's. It was their SUV, but they have an ICE version and they have an EV version. And basically the drivetrain is the only difference. Like the interior and most all the other components are the same. And they said that it took 70% more pollution in creating the electric version than the regular internal combustion engine version. Straight from Volvo, their own research, the amount of pollutant was 70% higher to make that electric vehicle than to make that gasoline burning vehicle. Now, I think they said that after a decade of running each, it basically equalized and the EV started eking out at being cleaner. But that's a huge upfront cost. How many people are still going to be running after 10 years on these things? How long are the battery packs going to last? How long is the software going to be updated? How long are people going to keep putting money into modules and motors and all this stuff? You got to think about this stuff because none of this stuff is like super long-term tested yet for durability and reliability and all this stuff. Now, I know GM has talked about they're coming out with a 1,000,000-mile battery pack that it can theoretically charge and discharge for a lifespan of 1,000,000 miles, but they haven't delivered it yet. They say they're working on it. They say they're close, but I haven't seen that they've delivered it yet. So you got to worry about that because you got to think about the charge and discharge. Batteries get memory like with your cell phone. The same thing happens with your car. How often are you going to charge it? Are you going to charge it all the way up every night? Are you going to let it run down? Like, you got to think about that stuff. And It's just a lot more things that people are going to adapt to in their vehicles. Let's see. People have claimed we would run out of oil 10 in 10 years starting in 1870. Yeah, I don't want to touch into this because I don't know if it's actual science or pseudoscience, but I've heard of studies in the past talking about crude oil and oil wells where people have gone to dried up oil wells years later and found that there's oil back in them. There's been talks of studies, papers I saw before years ago on something called abiotic oil, where they think that crude oil is some kind of regenerative resource from deeper in the chemistry of the earth that we don't quite understand. Some of them say it's a finite resource and all we have is what's in the ground now. We can only tap so much of it. So we don't know if we're going to run out. We've had so many guesses, like this gentleman said that we were going to run out in X amount of time. We haven't, but we don't know. It could be a finite resource. It could be self-regenerating resource to some descent, not to sound kooky, but like not self-regenerative, like something that the processes inside deeper in the earth are regenerating these wells of oil resources. But again, I don't know how scientific or how accurate that stuff is. It might have been some conspiracy stuff on that. Hoping that Subaru is collaborating with Toyota to use the GR Yaris or Corolla platform for the new STI. Likely, that is happening. I remember on a Subaru News episode about a year ago, maybe sometime in there, that there were talks of Toyota and Subaru working on a hot hatchback, and there was a patent, or not a patent. They were registering a trademark name for it. I don't remember the name was, but given the popularity of the GR Yaris overseas, I could see them maybe rebranding as a Subaru. There was, like I said, talk where Subaru and Toyota were co-developing a hot hatch, and the Yaris is their hot hatch. The Yaris GR is already put together. It's already a working car, so I could see them slapping some Subaru emblems on it and a different name. Probably not WRX or STI. They probably wouldn't brand that to a hatch like the Yaris GR, but they might come out with a new Subaru model to replace where the WRX STI used to habitate. But again, with the speed that everyone's trying to push for electric vehicles, I don't know if they would bother. If they're not bothering to formulate the STI for the WRX chassis, I don't know how willing they would be to make something like the GR Yaris and push it as the Subaru brand version of it. It doesn't make a lot of sense given the excuse they gave for killing the STI, but you never know. They might not. Hydrogen fuel, electric is the way, not to mention precious metal supplies for batteries. Yep. The only thing Subaru of America understands when unit sales are not moving. The only thing they understand or don't understand, the only thing that talks to them is when they do sell something. Like who knows to be controlling climate control, hand gestures. Yeah, that was what GM with the Cadillac. I think they had that system. I want to say I think it was the Q system, CUE, with the like slide bars for like radio volume and change stuff. And I think it was in the HVAC as well. I'm not up on GM stuff anymore. I used to be a GM guy and work on all GMs before I went to Subaru, but like I haven't messed with GM stuff since the bankruptcy in 2008. I bought a Pontiac G8 GT in the very beginning of 2008 or the end of 2007, right when it first got to U.S. market. And it wasn't 4 months after I bought that G8 GT that Pontiac, Saturn, Hummer, and what else did they kill at that time? Like was finito. Oldsmobile, I think, died out in the early 2000s, right? I don't think they made it to 2008 with the bankruptcy. But yeah, I haven't really kept up with GM stuff since then. Like the newest GM vehicle I have right now is my 2004 Sierra Dually. And that's probably as new a GM truck as I would own. Like 03 to 05, I think, is like the peak for the GM truck. Like the new ones are just so much trouble. Do a buyer's guide for the Subaru Forester, but I already did actually. I think it was 2 Sundays ago or something. Look back on my feed there, outdoor enthusiast. I did do a Subaru buyer guide. Now I know a lot of you like those where we did the Outback and the Legacy. We've done the Forester. I plan to do one in the future for the WRX and the STI, especially now that you can't buy a new STI anymore. And I believe I'll be doing one for the Crosstrek as well, since we're in the 3rd gen with the 4th gen probably about to release. Hopefully we see a Crosstrek Wilderness and the next generation Crosstrek before they discontinue that as well. But yeah, I do plan to do some more of those. Jailbreaking service for our cars upcoming. I'm sure there will be something along those lines. Are you going to do a buying a used WRX STI video? Yep, we just literally just said that. Let's see. I'm still way behind. What time is it? It's 8. It's almost 9 o'clock, and I'm at 8:50 on the chats. Let's see. Oh, we got a super chat here. Love the content. Cheers from Canada. Thank you. A Tracin, ATRACIN. Greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much. GM will be bankrupt by then. Probably. I mean, I don't see GM and Ford's going to accomplish this without massive funding from the government or some kind of kickbacks or something. There's arguably more available power at night due to less demand use. True on that with people charging at night, but still you got to think about it. In the summer, in the South, we still run our air conditioners full blast like 24/7 in the summer. So it's not really, and we're alleviating lighting, and we're alleviating like power demand of people on their computers and watching television stuff while they're sleeping, but there's still a massive amount of draw on the power grid. And then you add all the EVs plugged in, that's still going to be quite a bit, and probably more so than our current power grid can handle without pumping it up majorly. Hybrid cars might work. I don't see pure electric working quickly. I've got to agree. Oil-fired power plants. I live in DC, which is charger heavy. The charging stations have waiting lines. I saw a TikTok video just the other day of some people, I think they were in California, and it was a row of Tesla superchargers, and they literally had everyone hooked up to all the chargers, a line of cars up the parking lot, across the parking lot, down the side of all just Teslas waiting to charge at this one charging station. That's another issue too, is charge times and finding chargers. I can pull up the gas station and in 2 minutes have a full 300, 400, 500 mile range at the click of a pump. You can't do that with EVs. The only thing I think for EVs to be a viable vehicle for everyone's use, people that do lots of road tripping, long trips, if you want to have the range of a gasoline powered vehicle with a fuel tank that you can fill up in minutes, sitting and charging 30, 45 minutes or however long supercharging takes, that's just not a feasible thing for a lot of people, especially when a lot of people altogether are trying to do this. I think the only way that they can get EVs to work with the current technology, now this is outside of them creating some exotic, crazy battery pack, with the current battery packs we have now, the current technology we have now, I see that I would think they would need to have some kind of uniformed battery and some kind of uniform connector, kind of like what we did with OBD2 and how one scanner can scan every manufacturer. Everyone needs to have one proprietary plug and one proprietary standard size battery pack. Now you can have multiples of it, but there needs to be at least one of this standard size, standard pack. And kind of like a propane tank exchange where you take your empty propane tank in, get a freshly filled propane tank, and you're on your way. We'd have some kind of service station where your EV pulls up and either you're lifted up and a battery pack is pulled out from under it and a new pack is fully charged and put in, or it slides out on a tray, something. I think that the best way for range and a shift for infrastructure convert all the gas stations to battery swap stations. Again, you have one standardized battery, one standardized connector. The station, the electric station instead of gas station has racks of fully charged cells ready to go. You come in, they pick your car up, or you drive over a pit. They drop your battery pack out, slide it out some way, put a fully charged one in, and bingo bammo. Within the same amount of time that you'd pull up, get out of your car, put the gasoline pump in, fill your tank, and come back out. Within a reasonable amount of time, you come in and you come back out fully charged and ready to go. I think that kind of system being implemented on a mass scale would help immensely for people that are hesitant to adopt EVs for the sake of range and drivability, especially, like I said, for people like me that live out in the country. Now, for city dwellers that usually very small trips, barely go 20 miles in a day, EVs are already great for you guys. There's plenty of charging stations in most larger cities. You don't drive enough really to burn your whole battery pack down to zero if you're fully charged. I mean, it's a really good system for you right now, especially with like the rebates, tax incentives, and all that for EVs. But for people that live out in the sticks, and we commute an hour drive to work one way, unless we're charging at work to go back home, I really think that there needs to be some kind of standardized battery and a battery pack exchange to help alleviate that anxiety, or range anxiety, as I've heard it coined, on EVs. So let's try to get caught back up in the chat. I think I've said my piece about the EVs and the electrics and what Subaru's done with the STI. Let's see, one more here. Natural gas and coal are responsible for 60% of U.S. power production. Nuclear is 20%. Green energy is 20%. But half of that is hydroelectric dams and are not exactly good for the environment. Facts and statistics. A lot of people don't like to hear factual information, but a lot of people just like the feel-goodness of thinking they're doing something great when it's shifting. This guy disguised, we could talk about this for a long time, or I could just talk to you guys about it for a long time. It just gets so easy to get off on a tangent, especially in this format where I'm just talking to a screen, essentially. So let's try to get caught up now. We've been on here for right about an hour, so we might as well open it up and get into some Q&A. So you guys that have some questions about your Subarus, about tools, what have you, let's have it out. Let's have a discussion. I think I missed another super chat somewhere along the way. I got that $5 one from the fella in Canada, but I think there was another one here. I'm going to scroll back up real quick. I do want to mention them if they did super chat me. Yep. I see one here from Nancy and the $5 one from, let's see what Nancy put. How to my favorite Subaru guy at 90,000 miles on my 2013 Outback. If I don't use the dealer for my CVT fluid change out, will I void my warranty? Well, on your 2013 with 90,000 miles, I don't know if you even still have the extended CVT warranty, because I believe it was for, well, you're pretty close. I think it was 10 years, 100,000 miles. So you're 10,000 miles and 1 year. I don't remember if it goes from your model year on your vehicle or the purchase date of the vehicle. But at any point, any rate, as long as who's doing it is brain fart, as long as whoever's doing it is competent and they're using the correct fluid and know the procedure, you shouldn't have any issue to worry about. Now, if you do have it replaced and you have an issue before the 100,000 miles or 10 years, I don't think Subaru is really going to have a diehard way to tell if it's been changed, unless they really screw up the fuel plug or drain plug or something. But your best bet probably be go to the Subaru dealership for the first change, and then after that, maybe go independent. Just if you're worried about that year or so, 10,000 mile window that you might have an issue. It might be a little bit better to pay a little bit more at the dealership and be safe than sorry. All right, so everyone's going through here. Yeah, competent is the key word. So many horror stories about people going to Quick Lubes or Walmart for oil changes and having their CVT drained or their old conventional automatic drained. Like, that's one reason why we don't have spin on transmission filters anymore. Like, we used to have spin on oil filter style transmission filters, which were great. Subaru's transmissions were so easy to service. You didn't have to drop the pan. You had a drain plug on your transmission plan. You had a screw on transmission filter. It was so easy to do a drain refill. It was as easy as changing your engine oil to service your transmission fluid. Problem is, you'd go to Jiffy Lube and all these quick lube places, and these kids working there would look up and say, "Oh, that's a pan. Oh, well, there's an oil filter." Bloop, and they would drain your transmission, put a new filter, put the drain plug back in. The guy up top wouldn't know and would pump 5 more quarts of oil in your engine. So you'd have 10 quarts of oil in your engine and no transmission fluid. Well, I would say no. You'd have 2/3 to a half capacity of your transmission fluid, because when you drain the pan, all of it doesn't come out, and you'd wreck your transmission. And I still, to this day, see people that have the same issue on modern vehicles where they're draining the CVT fluid, double filling the engine with oil. Now you've got double filled oil in your engine, no CVT fluid. Again, relatively speaking, no, you still got like half to 2/3 of your CVT fluid, but not enough to not tear something up. So competent is the key, as he said there in the comments. You want someone that knows what they're doing. So a nice independent Subaru repair shop or the dealership would be your best bet, because a lot of places don't know what they're doing working on Subaru still here in 2022. Another super chat real quick. Hey, I have a 2019 Ascent. Just called my dealer for CVT recall. I was told no parts until May. What do you know about this recall? I'm not sure which one you're talking about. If this is the what was the most recent one they had? I think it was on the come on, brain. The one where the chains were coming loose, or they were having breakage of chains, where they were coming in telling you to come in for the recall. They dropped the pan and check the fluid and check the chain. I can't remember if I did a Subaru News video on this or not, but it was something recently. It was the Ascent, and I think the Outback XT, Legacy XT, like the heavy duty TR690, where they were having the issue. Now, I know that they had a lot of issues with the CVT and the Ascent, and they were doing a lot of replacements. My actual personal insurance agent for my farm, his wife had a Ascent, and I think they had to have their CVT replaced at like 40,000 miles under warranty. So I'm not sure if it's that recall. That recall, if I remember right, was just an inspection, but I think it was an inspection unless they saw something they were replacing it. But I'm assuming that most of the inspections lead to a replacement, so they're just probably lacking on the part. So, if your dealership says they can't have you in till May, I guess you've got to kind of make do till then. Hopefully you're not having any kind of drivability issues with your Ascent and can make it to that point where they can make it right for you. Or maybe, if you have an issue, maybe see if they can do something. Subaru American cover you a rental car or something, because they should be able to handle that. If there's an open recall and you have an issue and can't drive your car, there should be something that they can help you with on, accommodating you until the point where they can repair your car. All right, let's switch back up here and see what we can look at. Interview on Tecton tools, how other companies might have to compete for that complete tool line that Tecton is offering. I get asked about Tecton a ton, and I haven't bought any Tecton. I've looked at their stuff. I just don't see the need. Like, I'm at this point where I have too many tools. I really do. I acknowledge that I have an issue with buying and collecting tools at this point. I mean, at the beginning, when I had my first shop, most of my stuff was Snap-on and Matco, because that was the only 2 tool trucks that came by. Now, later when I shut down my first shop in 2013, before I went to work for Snap-on, I took that toolbox home to the farm and left it there. Now, a few years back, as you most of you saw on the channel, I was in a shop. I had worked out a deal with a buddy of mine that had a shop where I could work on my customer cars, film my YouTube videos as long as I kept his cars going. And when I was there, I was bringing tools back and forth. I was actually working out of my Outback. I was doing mobile diagnostic for a while and mobile repair, but I decided, it's a whole lot easier to have a roof over your head, a concrete floor, and a lift than working outside in the elements or outside in the dirt on my back at my farm. So at the time, I bought the Maximizer roll cart from a Mac dealer because I had a Mac guy at that point, and I just started buying everything I already owned. In my Snap-on box in the Mac equivalent or Snap-on equivalent, so I could have tools at the shop and tools at the house, so I didn't have to keep bringing stuff back and forth, because I'd bring stuff from the farm to the shop to work during the week, and then I go home on the weekend or something when I work on something at the house. I'm like, crap, this at the shop, and I have to run back and forth, and it's like, I'll just have multiples. And then we had an issue, and that no longer worked out. So then I brought that stuff home. So now I've got the Maximizer and the Epic at the farm, and basically duplicates of all the tools. And then I started getting into the Japanese and German stuff, and now I've got like quadruplets of a lot of tools. So like it's like snowballing. It's like, how many brands of tools am I going to justify to myself buying for the sake of review and talking about? So I haven't really looked into Technic stuff because it really hasn't just appealed to me. Okay, yes, it was about the chain guides. Good for the clarification there. Another super chat from Sean here. Is there an easy way to find the SOJ service recommendations? Subaru of Japan service recommendations, imprint versus Subaru of America. Thanks for the channel. I've looked in the past at Subaru Japan's website, Subaru JP, and you can find some PDFs on there of owner's manuals and some service recommendations, like service scheduled services. But again, you got to translate it. It's not a lot of translation because it's mostly numbers. But I have found it's just not very concrete to find, to compare it. It's not really that easy to find the Subaru of America's recommendations anymore, because they really don't put the recommendations in the owner's manuals like they used to, or at least not in the exact same format or for the exact same length of time. And a lot of the recommendations are skewed too because of the whole lifetime CVT fluid nonsense. And it's a fluid you never have to service. And you know exactly why. Subaru of Japan says service your CVT at 3-year, 36,000 mile intervals, as we've always recommended you service your transmission. And Subaru of America says this is a lifetime fluid, never touch it. And it comes down to cost of ownership. That's the main reason that Subaru is saying that. It's not that Subaru of America believes that the fluid is more, more forgiving in the U.S. market or the U.S. buyer, or the way that the consumer in the U.S. drives the vehicle, that, it's a much better fluid. You'll never have to worry about it. One, it comes down to a degree to planned obsolescence. And the other thing, the major thing, is that it comes down to brain fart. God, train wreck. Oh man, what was that? Okay, so talking about why you shouldn't service your transmission. It really doesn't make sense though. Like, okay, we're gonna say it's a lifetime fluid. So if you have an issue and your transmission failed, okay, yeah, the fluid lasted for the lifetime of the transmission. But I don't understand why they're cost of ownership. That was it. It was the cost of ownership that you see like on the window sticker. They talk about cost of ownership over X amount of years, how long it'll take to cost it, because of the price of the CVT fluid, the price for the service. They don't want to factor that into the cost of ownership, because that would be factored in and would make it have a much higher cost of ownership. So that's one reason why they don't do it. But it looks like they would still want to recommend it, because that's a lot of money in service once you're out of your warranty period. And a lot of times the warranty doesn't cover services anyway like that. So it just seems like they're losing a money-making opportunity. But it seems they would rather sell you a CVT replacement with a reman unit when yours fails due to lack of servicing, than to have you service it the whole time and get a long life out of your transmission. Now, I've talked before about how the CVT is demonized as a crappy transmission and they constantly fail. If you look at some YouTubers, Scotty's one of them, who used to trash, which he's kind of done a 180 on Subaru. Recently, he's been like, he's backed off. I don't know if Subaru's threatened him or something with legal action or something, but like he's backed off on Subaru. I'll never forget one video from Scotty I saw about Subaru. One of you viewers sent to me. I can't remember who it was. It might have been you, Tim. You sent me a lot of videos. But he was talking about that he went on some trip and they had to have a rental car, and it was one of them dang Subarus with the confounded CVT transmission, and it only had 10,000 miles on it, and it was already slipping, shifting. Scotty, they don't shift. I mean, well, at the time, it was before they started programming the fake shifts in there, but like a CVT slipping shifts, like unless you're getting chain slip, like we talked about in a video a couple videos back, which I'm sure he wasn't hearing chain slip. Like, come on, dude, it's a CVT. It was shifting poorly and slipping already. Do you know how a CVT works? Have you driven CVTs enough to know how they work when they're supposed to work? I don't know. The head gasket issue was bad. I'm one to admit that. I know it was bad. They should have fixed it. They should have redesigned the head gaskets long before they did. They should have fixed that. But the CVT thing, it's been blown out. Like, yes, CVTs do fail. Yes, they do have issues with them. No, they're not as reliable as the old 4EAT or 5EAT that were Jatco units. But like, again, I think Scotty was the one that actually started the CVTs were made by Jatco and compared it to the Nissan Jatcos. But no, Subaru built the Lineartronic in-house. It was their transmission. Subaru's been putting CVTs in vehicles, road-going vehicles, before anybody else, back with the Justy and the K cars and stuff. Like, they got it pretty much dialed in. Like, I always talk about my Crosstrek and my brother's Outback, but I've seen others just as well. So the 2010 Outback that I did the rear brakes on just on Wednesday, I think, of this week, that car's got 678,000 miles on it. Only thing we've done to the CVT, factory CVT, was put a torque converter in it. Our other's Outback, 215,000 miles. We put a torque converter in it. We put a valve body in it just this summer, but 200,000 miles, trouble-free, usage out of it. And then my Crosstrek, I'm coming right up on 220,000 miles. Everything's original in that CVT except for the valve body, which was replaced at 171,000 miles. I got the entire service history of that car. And it was always religiously serviced at the Subaru dealership where it was bought and traded back in. And the only major issue that Crosstrek had was both front CV axles were replaced around 30-ish something thousand miles, if I remember right, due to noise. And the transmission valve body was replaced at 171,000 miles. Now, they had the valve spring recall done. They had the Takata airbag recall done. But outside of brakes and fluids and belts and all that normal stuff, there was no issue from the CVT, no issue from the FB20. Like, they are pretty solid cars. Now, they might not be on a whole as reliable as, Toyota, Honda, or some of the others, but I don't know. Subarus are still good cars. They just get a bad rap. Yeah, I know they have some issues. Yeah, I know that every model isn't perfect, but, I just think that some people make it seem like they're much more inferior of quality than they actually are. All right, let's get back to Benjamin Speechley. Tim ? Yes, Tim Brown. He responded with Benjamin. All right, let's get back. Well, I think I missed another super chat in here, and then I'll try to get back to you guys' questions, get back on track. I know I'm getting off track here, which I have a tendency to do. And it's been one more day, so I'm a little out of sorts. When is the next tool haul? Finally picked up a Coke and Ratchet about a month ago. Can't wait to get more of their stuff. I actually got a massive haul of tools in from Japan back in February. I filmed the video. I haven't edited it yet. I might go back and refilm some stuff, but I have a massive haul. Like the first Japanese tool haul video I did, it was like $1,000 in Japanese tools when I got the first batch of cooking stuff. Like this one was like $1,700. I went stupid crazy with this. So it's coming. I've covered some of the tools in that haul on TikTok. If you're not watching me on TikTok, I do almost exclusively tool stuff on TikTok. I don't do a lot of Subaru stuff there. But I've talked about some of the stuff there. But yes, that video is coming. I have filmed it. I have the stuff. Just got to edit it and sit down and get it all together. So, Tim, what was it? I sure wish that Subaru would adopt the Aisin transmission line, or Asian? Do you mean Aisin or Asian trans line from Toyota, because they are using actual physical gear when the car first takes off and it switches over to the traditional CVT. Yeah, I've heard about that. I haven't looked into that system where they use. Oh yeah, I forgot I could click you guys' stuff and put it on the screen. It's been so long since I've live streamed. I forget how all this stuff works. I'm an old guy. I'm 35 years old. Technology's getting scary now. So yeah, I've heard about Toyota and they've got like a traditional clutch pack or band first gear, like a conventional automatic, and then it switches over to the CVT drive for the after takeoff. But I haven't looked into it. I haven't even seen an exploded diagram of how it works, nor do I know how they could adapt that for CVT's all-wheel drive setup. Likely putting something, well, for it to be, you'd probably have to put it in front of the variators and the chain. I don't know if you could put it behind it. I don't know. Transmissions are my weak point, especially automatics. And I say this because when I was going through tech school, second year when we were doing automatic transmissions, I had actually had an accident at work and I fell and I shattered. I don't know if the green screen's going to screw up. I shattered this elbow here. And that's where that big wicked scar is from. I had 2 surgeries on it. I got nerve damage in it. This joint's all screwy. I had titanium screws in here. But like that arm was splinted up and surgically put back together when we were doing automatic transmissions. So I missed a lot of hands-on with automatic transmissions. But also at the time I was coming through, they kind of trained us for dealership life. Like, you don't need to really worry about rebuilding automatic transmission. Dealership, you're just going to put remans in. You're not going to rebuild them. And that's true. That's what they do in dealerships. They don't remanufacture transmissions. They dump the old one out in the crate, send it back as a core. They put a reman at the dealership. Most independent shops are putting in a rebuilt or reman transmission. They're not rebuilding them. You have to go specifically to a transmission shop. And I wasn't going to work in a transmission shop. So learning exactly how they work, theory I know, but every single person's individual design, not so much. So that's something I had to look into. I've changed like all the front suspension components, but my 2002 Legacy 2.5 is still weirdly twitching near full lock steering. A lot when going in circles. Any idea what that might be? If you're cutting tight circles and you're feeling like a rocking, a twitching, as you're saying, binding, that might not be your suspension components. That might be an issue with your transfer clutch in the tail housing of your transmission. I'm assuming you're an automatic transmission vehicle. Now, it could be the center differential if you're in a 5-speed, but more times than not, I see issues like that where people get like, it feels like the 4 wheels are kind of fighting themselves and the car gets kind of twitchy. It's because that transfer clutch is locking in and all 4 wheels are trying to spin at the same speed. When you go around tight corners, then they sort of fight each other. It's kind of like how a rear differential, having an open differential when going around curves compared to a spool or a locked rear differential. Your inside tire turns slower than your outside tire because it has to go further when you're pivoting. And the same thing happens with all-wheel drive cars. The 2 inside tires are going to turn slower than the outside tires. And if they're locked together, they're going to fight each other because it's going to try to spin that inside tire more when it wants to not spin more than the outside tire. So they kind of fight each other in the drivetrain. So I would look at your transmission transfer clutch. You didn't say, okay, 2002. So you should have a spot for the all-wheel drive, or not all-wheel drive, the front-wheel drive fuse spot. Try putting the front-wheel drive fuse in and take the all-wheel drive out of the equation. Cut those tight circles, and if you notice all that twitchiness and all that what you're feeling is gone, definitely would be the transfer clutch. Um, but that's a quick and easy way to check it is that front-wheel drive fuse. I hate they took that away in the later model vehicles, where you couldn't switch from all-wheel drive to front-wheel drive, because in the newer vehicles, it's done electronically. It's not done mechanically. There's like a little clutch pack in the tail housing, and it varies the amount of output into the prop shaft or drive shaft to the rear end. The automatics are primarily front-wheel drive. But yeah, it's nice to have that little fuse. It's a nice little diagnostic aid when you're checking out transfer clutch. All right, we're getting behind again, as I always do. Let's see if we can get in here. Oh, we got another super chat. My Outback EJ25 has a vibration when acceleration. Where to start trans? That's pretty hard to say where to start on just a vibration under acceleration. You might want to check on the engine, see how in tune everything is, spark plugs, all that kind of stuff. If the engine's running rough, you could have a vibration. If you have an issue with a CV axle, with your prop shaft, something out of balance, some joint hanging up, that could cause a vibration. If you got an issue with a transmission mount, an engine mount, rear differential bushings, your pitch stopper on your transmission, all those things could play a part in it. If you have I don't think that severely out of balance tire would cause a vibration on acceleration from a standstill. You'd see it pretty much all the time, varying speeds. But yeah, it's kind of hard to pinpoint you exactly where to start. Those are some of the things to start doing. The best thing to do would be just do a general overall inspection of the vehicle front to back and see if anything sticks out to you as wrong. Start from there. You might need to like check control arm bushings, trailing arm bushings, all that kind of stuff you need to think about as well. Any good websites for rebuilt EJ25 engines? Depends on if you're talking about a 251, 253 actually aspirated, or if you're talking about 255, 257 turbocharged engine. Most of the time, I'm going to Subaru and getting a Subaru Reman for a 25 or a 27 or 257. 255, 257, not 25, 27. But as for the 251, 253, I don't know if Subaru even still sells remans. I've never actually bought a naturally aspirated reman 2.5 from Subaru. I normally transplant from another vehicle, get a used engine or something along those lines. I've never gotten an engine, say, from like Jasper, which is a major remanufacturer, or what's the other one? I think there's one that starts with a D, and I cannot remember now. But I haven't gotten any from any place like that to be able to speak on it from any experience or to promote or advise you to one versus the other. Let's see. So Subaru, I have a question. Have you ever heard valve lash get ticky after a car warms up? Which engine are you talking about? I've heard a lot of issues people have had with ticking noises in their Subaru, whether it be from like the older 2.2 that had the hydraulic lash adjusters, or the more modern 25s that have the adjustable rocker arms, or be from the turbocharged engines with their little buckets and shims. Less likely do you hear noise from the turbocharged engines with the little hydraulic lifter buckets and the shims on top. Normally it's from the 22s with the hydraulic lash adjusters, or the 25s with the adjustable rocker arms. But yes, I have had people come to me with issues that, if your valve clearances are out of spec, you can get some valve train ticking, clicking noises in the top end of the engine. It makes Subaru look good on leased vehicles like BMW's cost of ownership. Okay, yeah, that's the big thing, is on leasing, not so much on buying. I think we missed a one here about EVAP. Trying to find the question there. I had my oil changed in my 2001 Crosstrek. The shop said my tires were rotated. I know they weren't. Our tires usually rotated oil changes. It's a good practice, especially now with the longevity between oil change intervals, 5,000 plus miles usually for synthetic oils. It doesn't hurt to rotate your tires. The more rotations you do, the more evenly they should wear and the longer they should last. Um, I do ask, how do you know they didn't rotate your tires? Did you mark your wheels and tires in some way and know that they didn't touch them, move them around? I know there's a lot of places, from Dateline and 2020 investigations where they do these. Oh, I went to Jiffy Lube, or I went to, I keep saying Jiffy Lube. Like, I can't think of any other like quick lube chain stores right now. Midas or some of those places, or Valvoline, Quick Care, Express Auto Care, any of those places. And then there's investigations where they change the oil, they change the transmission fluid, new air filter, everything. They completely service a car. Take it in there, get a free inspection to see how many services they try to sell them. They might have told you that they rotated your tires. They might actually bill you for rotating your tires, and they might not have, because I know that there's a lot of issues in establishments like that, especially if that's where you were. If you took it to Subaru and Subaru told you they did and they didn't, that's another issue. That's a problem with their quick lube side. But, the root of the question here is, should you rotate your tires every oil change? If you have the ability to do so, it's not going to harm anything. It's actually beneficial. I'm not telling you to go out and rotate your tires every 5,000 miles. But if you do have a business that will rotate your tires for free with an oil change, you might as well get it done, just because it helps promote even wear on your tires and longer tire life. Are Moog wheel bearings any good? I used to use a lot of Moog parts back in the day. I still use Moog on like GM trucks and things of that nature, but like for Subaru, I still tend to go to the factory part, because part for part, like ball joints and sway bar end links and stuff, usually the factory Subaru part is pretty much on par pricing with the Moog or any other aftermarket. Now, Moog used to be really good stuff, but I've had not personal issues with, but other shops I know in the area, people that used to swear by Moog, people that put a lot of Moog and aftermarket suspension components in, and said that the quality has gone downhill. They have had to warranty more parts than they used to. And I believe that production has moved to cheaper production for a lot of Moog stuff. Now, as far as wheel bearings go, Subaru wheel bearings are what I use. I have started doing some Timken USA wheel bearings, because I've used Timkens in a lot of stuff for a lot of years. Whether it be my truck, I got Timken wheel bearings in the front of my 3500 Sierra. I got Timken wheel bearings in my 97 P30 Mac Tools tool truck. Like, I've used Timken in a lot of things. I have installed them on Subarus, and I haven't had issues with them. The factory Subaru wheel bearings, I cannot remember who they are. I can't remember if they're NTN or if they're Koyo. I know they're a Japanese bearing company, but Timken USA bearings are on par. If you were going with aftermarket, I would go Timken more so than Moog. And the prices are pretty similar last I checked. Yep, as do I. Although he blocked me years ago, I commented on something. I think it was back when 802 Garage did his Scotty Kilmer parody video. Uh, I think I commented some stuff on one of his videos, like a big paragraph correcting all of the misconceptions and inaccuracies he quoted. And I went back later and it was gone. So either deleted it or blocked me or both. So it is what it is. Perhaps the fact that CVTs govern the engine to a higher RPM affects the life of the car. Certainly does on Hondas. Yeah, Honda's another one that's gone downhill with their quality. Like Honda used to be up there with Toyota. Like when you talked about Japanese reliable vehicles, it was Honda and Toyota. Like Honda's gone way down recently. Do you think that the STI is discontinued? Do you think that the STI is discontinued? Will the GC and GF chassis skyrocket in price? It will be harder for you to get now and build. Yeah, the STI price is definitely going to go up because now it's a discontinued collectible vehicle, kind of like people with Evo 8s and Evo X's. Like the prices on them things are insane, like 240 SXs back when drifting was huge. Hell, 240 SX prices are still out of this world. Like people are getting $5,000 and $6,000 for beat up freaking drift rockets, like hammered, mismatched panels, destroyed dashes, interiors trashed, blown up engines, like half apart, like half done SR20 slots. People still has like $6,000 for. Like I don't understand how people sell vehicles like this. Every time I try to sell a vehicle, I always get hammered. That 2007 Outback SUS, the $300 Outback, the gold one, I picked up right about a year ago. And went through, rebuilt the engine, did all the gaskets, head gaskets, all that stuff. We put a prop shaft in it due to a center support bearing failure. We serviced the front and rear differential. We did, I think the previous owner did front brake rotors, calipers. We did rear wheel bearing or rear brakes. We did front and rear sway bar end links. We did ball joints. We did, we went front to back on that car. And I think I finished that car officially like end of September, put it for sale like October, November. And I just sold it today. Tentatively sold it. I haven't got the money in the hand yet, and I haven't signed the title over, and the fella hasn't taken it. But he came today, test drove it, said he liked it. We agreed on a price. He said he'll bring me a cashier's check in the next day or two, which of course I will certify at his bank that it's drawn on before we sign paperwork. But it is so insane that some people can just sell stuff so easily. Every time I get on Facebook Marketplace, it is a nightmare for me. Whether I'm trying to sell something or trying to buy something is always the biggest pain. I put something on there and all I get is super low ball offers right out of the gate. People just tick me off. No one ever comes to look at the car. No one wants to negotiate in person. They just want to throw a low ball price at you and then start talking about it. Like, I don't understand the shift in people, the way people do business, especially on buying and selling a car recently, but I hate it. I hate dealing with it. Now, I recently sold a bulldozer and a tractor, and that went easy peasy because I'm out here in the South and I'm dealing with good old boys and, come out, talk to you, look it over, negotiate a fair price, handshake, done deal. But with cars, I'd rather take a beating than try to sell more cars. I mean, I've got like 4 or 5 Subarus right now sitting, waiting for me to go through and do head gaskets and all this other stuff, other fix and flip cars. But I'm to the point where I don't even want to do the fix and flip cars anymore because I get drug every time I try to sell one. Just dealing with people on Marketplace, I'd rather take a beating. This car I had posted for $4,500, and I'd get messages. This still available? $2,000 question mark? Or $2,500 question mark? Like, who in their right mind? Right off of the gate, the first communication with someone trying to sell a car, you lowball them $2,000 on their asking price, and then not expect them to give you a smart ass response or to get fly off the handle ticked at you and not respond. Like, in what world do people think that's like a fair way to go about it? How are you talking about price on a vehicle that you have not seen, you have not looked at in person, you haven't driven, you haven't heard it run, but you're already talking price? Price is what you negotiate at the end of the buying process. It's how I always do it, how I always done it. Maybe things are just changing and people just buy on price, but I look at it this way. If you talk to me about price before you've seen the car, before you drove the car, before you've even heard it run, if I agree on your price, when you show up, you're handing me money, I'm signing you the title, and you're taking the car. It's no, well, man, what about that scratch there? Man, them tires look a little worn. That's out of the ballpark. You've already negotiated your price that you're willing to pay. At that point, you're coming just to pick it up and go. You're not here to go back and forth on anything or nitpick the car. You skipped that step. You went right past that. You went straight to the money. You're at the end of the buying process. Once money's discussed, it is time to exchange the money and the paperwork and go our separate ways. That's just the way I look at it. I don't even know why I'm on this. Oh yeah, I talked about SDI, used SDI prices and GC and GF chassis. It's hard. It's already hard to find GC and GFs just because of rust and issues. I've got 2 GF chassis behind the house. Been saying for years I was going to build one for a rally car. Have not done it. On that Sandblast Rally, went to that at the beginning of the month. Got to see my buddy Brian. Got to see viewer Courtney. He's in the live chat right now. Took a lot of still pictures, took a few videos. I took video the whole day. I tried to do like a vlog thing of it, but I'm horrible at vlogging. That's actually the video I was trying to release today, was on Sandblast, but I lost a couple clips. I was going to have to refilm some stuff. I put it together and I didn't like it. I wasn't pleased with the product. I'm lacking in my cinematography. I feel like I need to get a drone. Like, it just feels boring to me. And if it feels boring to me, I don't feel like you guys would want to watch it, but I'm going to try to tweak it this week and maybe put it on Wednesday. But yeah, there's that Sandblast Rally. It was kind of a weak rally. Like, there was a lot of cars and a lot of motorcycles missing this year. It wasn't like what had been in years past. I'm gonna try to get that video out to you guys. I got the Japanese tool haul video. We're still working on that 200. I'm still weird. I always say weird. It's me. It's a one-man show. I do all the filming, all the editing, all the script writing, all the videography, the sound mixing, video editing, all that. It's all me. I don't always say we, like I got some big production company. Like I got a cameraman over here, so I'm literally on my freaking laptop and got a lamp over here, you know. But the 200,000 mile legacy, there's more videos coming out on it. I kind of skipped on some of the things like the rear brakes and rear upper links for the suspension and the shock struts, because we've covered that in videos. Like, I'm to the point where I have like 2, 3, or 4 videos on the exact same service. It's like, do you guys really want to see me do a 4th brake job on this same chassis? Do you really want me to see do a 3rd strut replacement on this chassis? You know, how many times can I replace ball joints? How many times can I talk about head gaskets? That's kind of the crux of talking about Subarus. They're all basically the same, and they've always been the same. So you show someone how to do one thing on one model, it basically covers the entire thing. Yes, I can make a little bit better video, a little bit more information, a little bit better shot, a little better videography. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know. Sometimes I just want to get to work on a project and not have to film it. And the first part of that I did off camera, and like when I'm starting the video up, you're going to see, all right, well, I just did the brakes, I did the struts, and I did the rear upper links. You're going to have a link here, a link here, a link here for those individual videos if you want to see how to do it step by step. And then we're going to get into the other stuff with the time belt, water pump, engine stuff for the turbo and the cam cover gaskets and all that stuff. But that video is coming up soon. I'm going to try to do the buyer's guides. Someone asked about EGR and how it works on Subaru, so I'm going to try to do an EGR video the same as I did the PCV video. We're going to try to get back to that. We did oxygen sensor, we did PCV. There's still a ton of stuff I can cover there between crankshaft sensors and camshaft sensors and your PCM, your inputs, outputs, and, you know, getting more theory stuff to help educate people. Because when I went through tech school, like, I understood most of the nuts and bolts of this stuff. But the program that our instructors followed, the books and manuals and things we went through, was the systems approach. And it basically revolved around the fact that if you know in theory, the theory of how each individual system on a vehicle works, if you know the nuts and bolts of how it works and how it's supposed to work when it is functioning properly, then you can figure out when it's not functioning. If you know how it's supposed to work and how it should work, when it's not working, you can more easily work your way back to why it's not working if you know how it should work. And that's been a good foundation for me over the years, and I think that's how I got more into doing diagnostic work and electronics and stuff like that. Was so many people I see in the industry, and I say that from the stance of when I was with Snap-on over the years, on and off again. I get to go into hundreds of shops between the Snap-on truck, and I see how shops are. I talk to mechanics, I talk to technicians, I talk to them about the vehicle they're working on, the issue they're seeing, their thought process. A lot of times they bounce stuff off me because they knew I worked on stuff to try to help them work through the diagnostic procedure. And a lot of times people would just come out with just the strangest stuff, like stuff that had no correlation to the issue they saw. But because they didn't fully understand the workings of it, they couldn't get themselves back to where they needed to be. And I see it a lot in the comments, and it's more excusable in the comments because I know you guys, for the most part, are not professional mechanics and professional technicians. You're here to fix your own personal vehicles as cheaply and quickly as you can without taking it somewhere and probably getting thrown through the ringer with someone else that might not know much more than you do, that just happens to have a set of tools and a building to work in. Like, that's my main goal here, is try to teach you guys and educate you guys, because if you know how it works, you can figure out how, what's wrong when it doesn't work. And where am I getting off on these tangents? What we were talking about? We were talking about used Subaru prices. I get off on this stuff. But anyway, yeah. So we're going to, future video. So yeah, we're going to try to start getting back into some of that. So more good videos are on the way. I just got to sit down and write scripts and plan, and I don't like doing all that stuff because it's kind of boring to me. But to make those videos as coherent and cohesive as possible, I've got to do that kind of stuff. So we got another super chat here. I think we got another one up here. This one predates. I'm at 28,000 miles on my Ascent and thinking of doing the CVT oil change. Can CVT oil change avoid my warranty? Yes, I would be using CVT oil, Subaru CVT oil. Now, that is a hard question to answer. By law, you changing your CVT fluid cannot void your warranty. I think it comes under the I think it's covered under the Magnuson whatever Act. I can't remember the name of it now. You should talk to your Subaru dealership where you purchase the vehicle and who services it. Some Subaru dealerships say, don't touch it, we will void your warranty. Although I don't think they legally have the right to do that or the ability to do that. Some of them are like, sure, we will change it for you. We have no problem doing the service. Like, it is so weird how Subaru of America and the U.S. Subaru dealerships handle the question of CVT fluid service. Because depending on where you are in the country, you get wildly vast different answers, where some are refused to even touch the transmission. Some are like, sure, we do CVT services all the time, like it's a routine as an oil change. So my advice would be to check with your actual dealership that you bought it from and that services it and will be doing warranty repairs on it, what their stance is on it. And now if they come back with a negative, like, no, we won't do it, absolutely not, then call Subaru of America, see what Subaru of America's hotline says, and they'll give you the token. We advise not to touch it. It's a lifetime sealed fluid, but if you press them, they should be able to. Well, yeah, if you want to do it, we should be able to do it, no problem. There shouldn't be an issue there. But again, check with your dealership, because that's the one you're going to be dealing with. And that other super chat went away. Where'd it go? Sorry, guys, asking questions. I got to get to these super chatters. Ever hear the valve tick get louder after warm up? Mine does. Normally, it would be loud, cold, and get quieter as it warms up, because normally it's because the clearances are too large, and once the engine gets warmed up, the metal expands and those clearances shrink and it gets quieter. If it's getting louder as it's getting warmer, it could be something other than your valve adjustment. Trying to think here. if you had like a rod bearing issue, I doubt that would be an issue with it. Um, I'm thinking about something. If it's getting louder with temperature, it's likely due to the fact that the oil being cold and thicker is masking the noise. And once it's getting up to temperature and thinning out or flowing better, then it's getting louder. So whatever it's going to be, it's going to be something that is oil pressure dependent, or your weight and temperature of your oil is affecting the sound. So what that could be, it could be several different things. My advice would be to get like a mechanic stethoscope. Like I think I've got the Lyle one in my Amazon storefront. If you got one of those, or even just get an extension and like a regular socket extension, ball your hand up on like a fist on the end of the extension and put it to your ear, and then touch the extension where you want to listen. And it works basically the same way. And just try to listen around and pinpoint where you think that ticking sound is coming from. It could be an exhaust leak. Now I'm thinking about it, because a lot of times exhaust leaks do have like a sound to them. But normally that would work in the inverse as well. That would be louder cold, and then once the head and the collector and all warmed up, it would squish the gasket back and quiet down. So it's kind of weird that it's working in the opposite. That makes me think that it's something that is got something to do with the oil. All right, guys. Sorry again, all you guys asking questions. There's one more super chat I need to get to, and then I'll try to get back to you guys in the chats. So we've got Darth Volvo, excellent name. 03 Forester 2.5 AC system is leaking at the condenser connection. I've replaced the O-ring twice, and there still is a leak at the condenser connection on the high side. That's a tricky one. Are you using a? It really shouldn't matter if it's AC O-rings or not. That shouldn't be the issue. Are you putting the O-rings on dry? Are you lubricating them with refrigerant oil? Have you checked for any kind of corrosion in the bore there of the condenser, where there's like that little plate, and then there's the circle in the plate. Like sometimes there can be some like aluminum oxidation there, and the O-ring won't seal up flush against that. You might need to check that little bore there. Yeah, that's basically the only thing I can think of, because even if like the line in the mounting area is tweaked a little bit, when you put the mounting, that little 10 millimeter headed bolt in there and tighten it up, it should come back flush, because it should be a flush machined aluminum surface between the two, with the nipple with the O-ring on it that goes into it. So that shouldn't be an issue. The main thing, again, make sure, one, you've got the appropriately sized O-ring, that it fits well. Make sure it's lubricated, that's going to slide in there well without tearing or bunching up or getting caught. And the other thing would be to check that bore for any aluminum oxidation or anything that could affect the seal of that O-ring. Or question back again is, how are you figuring out this is the leak? Are you seeing the leak there? Have you put refrigerant dye in and you're seeing the dye there? Have you checked other areas of the system to see maybe if that was an old leak that dye leaked out, and maybe there's another leak somewhere in the system? What process are you using to figure out that's the one that continually is failing? I mean, is it so bad that when you shoot a refrigerant charge in, it's like blowing out refrigerant there, or what on that? If you could jump back in and follow up on that, Darth Volvo. All right, so let's try to get back in some of these questions here. It is now approaching 10 o'clock. We've been live for an hour and 30. Probably going to wrap it up here in the next 30 minutes or so. As again, once I talk this long, my voice starts giving out. All right, let's see. Honda still using timing belts and requires valve adjustments 80,000 miles. I also use the GFI fuel injection, which are not great. Now, as far as I knew, Hondas had gone to timing chains with the, I can't even remember the engine series Hondas. I know they used to have the B series and the D series, but I don't think they're going by any of those acronyms now. They've gone to the what do they call it now? Blue Earth Dreams engine series. I thought those were all time and chain engines, and yeah, they've gone to the direct fuel injection, but they've been having issues with oil dilution, with or gasoline oil dilution with their direct injection, where they're either running too much fuel or the rings are not sealing good enough, or fuel is getting in and like watering down the gasoline. And fuel is a solvent, gasoline is I mean, I said fuel and gasoline. Gasoline is a solvent, and when it gets in the oil, it destroys the lubricity of the oil and can start eating up main bearings and other bad things, rod bearings, everything else in your engine. So Honda's got some real big issues going on right now with that kind of stuff that I don't think they've quite worked out yet. People talk about Subarus and their issues, but other manufacturers have just as many issues that aren't always talked about. I've hopped on Milwaukee bandwagon since watching your videos. Finally found a 36 inch high capacity cart and chest on Marketplace for cheap. Thanks for the great videos and tour reviews. You are greatly welcome, Garrett. My 95L won't switch to high beam. It just turns off. No voltage, and fuse and relay look good. So you're not getting any voltage from your high beam peak. Let's see, 95. You should have a single bulb, right? Not two bulbs. You don't have a high and a low. You've got the combo bulb, right? So what you're saying is you're not getting voltage output on the pins for the secondary filament for the high beam. Fuse is good, okay. And you say the relays look good. Have you checked relays, or when you flip your high beam switch, is the high beam relay clicking? Is that your way of checking and saying the relay is good? Have you actually taken the relay out, hook jumper wires across the coil, energize the coil, and check for continuity across the switching side of the relay? What all have you done there on your diagnostic process for that? My 2-liter turbo and K series are all on chain. Yeah, I pretty much figured that Honda had gone all chain by now. Or at least all the modern Hondas I'd seen were time and chain, as far as I can remember. Basically, I can't really think of anything modern that still got a timing belt on it. Although basically all I work on base now is Subarus. I mean, I still piddle with some GM, Ford, whatever. My old customers that still come that to me, bring me their vehicles when I had my shop. But like, I don't know of any, like, in 2022, a vehicle that comes off the showroom floor that has a time belt. If you know of one, put it in the comments below, because I'm curious on that. New Outbacks have gained like 6 inches wider. Why are cars so wide now? Yeah, I think the American thing. We want it bigger, taller, wider, more powerful. With every year model, they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I have a 2014 2.5i, 117,000 miles so far. No issue with CVT. We'll change the front and rear diff and radiator fluid before I turn it over to my son to drive back and forth to college. Excellent. That's pretty low miles. 2014 Outback with 117,000 miles. How do you prefer the torque? How do you prefer to torque your specs? Most people I hear only torque engine components, and everything else aside from brakes gets hand tight. Normally, in the videos, the repair videos, you see that I torque every fastener that I can find the torque specification for, and I give you your torque specifications on screen directly from the Subaru service manual. Now, I try to follow that as much as I can, because I'm not a guy in the dealership and I'm not doing things trying to fight the book time and working flat rate. I don't see the sense in not torquing things with a torque wrench. I have torque wrenches. I keep them calibrated. I have all the factory service manuals. I can easily, very quickly look up. And at this point, basically most of the torque specifications are locked away in the old noodle. And they're pretty much the same for years, different model years and different makes. So, or different, not makes, model years and models. Pretty much all the ball joint bolts are the same torque. All the castle nuts are the same torque. I think it's like 19.9 foot-pounds on the castle nuts, and on the castle nut for the ball joint, I think the ball joint pinch point is like 29 Newton meters or 21 Newton meters. And the spark plugs are 20 or 21 Newton meters. Like, I pretty much know almost all of the torque specs in my head. So torque wrench is right there. Might as well torque it to spec, know it's done, bang on, perfect. Now, there are some times when I'm working and I'm tired and I'm just, getting done, like suspension components, big, heavy stuff, running with the impact. It's tight. It's not going to go anywhere. Some of that stuff you have to be worried about because some stuff you can over torque. Like, I see a lot of people that run in CV axle nuts with an impact and just hammer it on there. You can't do that kind of stuff because that CV axle nut, that torque specification does set your preload on your wheel bearings. If you just hammer on there with the impact, you're going to tear up those wheel bearings because they're going to have too much preload on them, too much tension in there. It's going to really tear up some stuff. So there's some stuff you really need to be cognizant of torquing correctly and doing a correct procedure on, rather than just slamming on with their impact saying it's German torque spec and it's good and tight and it's good to roll. Like, getting it as tight as you can is not always the best practice. For example, the CV axle nuts. I just smoked my 2002 clutch. Sad, $1,000 from the dealer for all new stuff. Ouch. No good there. EJ22, 1998 car, hits a wall at 3,000 RPM when driving and won't pass it. Changed spark plugs and still does it. When in neutral, also won't rev past 3,000 RPM. Head gasket issue or cylinder low compression, manual 5-speed GF wagon. I don't think that would be a head gasket issue. A head gasket issue would not limit your RPM. I don't think it would be low compression either. It could be. I would probably check cylinder leakage more than anything. But it sounds to me like you have maybe an issue with something in your ignition system. Maybe your ignition coil is getting weak. Maybe it doesn't want to. Maybe it's cutting spark at a certain point. Maybe your fuel pump's getting weak. It doesn't want to feed fuel for the injectors to get to a certain duty cycle. Without more information than that, or out seeing the vehicle and doing some checks, it's really hard to diagnose stuff over the internet through comments. I know a lot of you message me on Instagram. I've got a million pending messages on there, and I'm sorry to you guys that I haven't got back to yet. Like, it gets overwhelming sometimes, the amount of emails and DMs and comments. Like, I try to answer a lot of you guys stuff, but like some of the stuff is like, it's just to the point where I can't help you without being there. Some of this stuff I literally need to be in person with the vehicle and able to physically put hands on it and test stuff, because just some stuff you cannot pinpoint or point in the direction based on a couple of symptoms or a couple of things described to you. But yeah, I'd start out doing all the normal checks. Check your output of your coil, check your fuel pressure, just stuff like that. Something's bound to come up, especially if you're not getting a check engine light, don't have any codes active that can point you in some kind of direction. I have a few ideas: off-road vehicles and sports cars. Not sure which I want to go get. I think I've jumped in on some other stuff. Hey, boss, just got off work. Why did they cancel the STI? Sorry for asking again. So the reason they canceled the STI is because Subaru said there was no point in formulating, engineering, designing a next generation chassis and powertrain for something that was going to have, quote unquote, a very limited shelf life before switching production over to all EV. They didn't want to invest the time, money, and energy into investing into creating a new STI that they might have in production for 2 or 3 years before they got rid of, when their normal cycle is 5 to 7 years. So they didn't want to make it. because the money they'd invest in it, they would not get back in the time that it would be in production and for sale. Thank you for that. Glad that I can help out. Glad you find the videos useful. Okay, there's something aftermarket center. I'm getting in a lot of conversation here in the back and forth, guys, commenting or conversating, trying to find some questions. Let's see. Ordered Forester last week. Will come July. I hope MSRP price plus Costco discount. It's sad they are discontinued the STI SMI. Valve tick is a feature on Subarus. Yeah, more or less. They do happen to have a lot more engine noise and be a little bit more mechanical sounding and louder than other engines. That's for sure. I would definitely say Japan. Not to say that the Lafayette, Indiana plant doesn't make good vehicles in the Legacy and the Outback and the Ascent, but there seems to be far less issues with the Japanese manufactured Forester, Crosstrek, BRZ, etc. It just seems that the cars that come from the Japanese manufacturing plants have a lot less recalls and a lot less issues and are a lot more reliable than the ones that come out of Lafayette. Could be a split in the aluminum of the condenser itself. It very well could be. Unless, like you said, you get dye or something specifically around that O-ring that makes you pinpoint that. Are Japanese made Subarus better? Yes. Death of the STI. Yeah, if you didn't know, Stanley Phillips, Subaru put out a memo last Friday saying that the STI was finito. 2021 will be the last STI. They're not going to develop a new STI, and if they do, it'll likely be an electric vehicle, or it'll be an electric vehicle with an STI sticker on it. They'll say, this is the new STI. It's just another generic electric vehicle. STI reverse pull-up rattle. Any quick fixes? I have done very little hands-on work to STIs, so I could not help you out on that. Normally, what I'm working on is the naturally aspirated stuff. The Subarus aren't a big thing in my area, being in the South. My buddy actually runs a pretty big Subaru speed shop local to me. So I'm sure he'd have more insight on that, but he's not around right now. I need to get him on here, probably do a live stream at one point. That would be cool to get Stu on here and get him to talk about Subarus, although he and I would probably devolve quickly into like I did on that turbocharged Subaru reliability video, because he gets as frustrated with WRX and STI owners as I do with their modifications and stuff. But yeah, as far as I know, it's just a collar that slides up and down. It's hooked to a cable, and it's for the lockout for reverse on the 6-speed manual. But I don't know if there's a bushing in there on the shifter assembly. I haven't messed with enough of the shifter assemblies on the STI 6-speed to really know what's going on there, what would make a rattle. It could be as easy as a bushing on the shifter. It could be a bushing on the end of the cable eyelet. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you I know what it is when I don't. What did I name that cat? I actually, so the story there was, me and my girlfriend got to the farm. We were going to do some work at my brick house. There's a garage on the back of the brick house that's like been shut up for years. I haven't been in there. I actually have my dad's old Dodge truck parked in front of it because the house was broken into at one point, and I had some stuff stolen out. I almost had a set of STI wheels stolen out there. They stole a set of Corvette wheels I had out there, and it looked like they were something spooked them because I had a set of STI wheels near the garage door, and they had gotten one wheel all the way up to the stairs that went to the side door, which is where they came in, and the other 3 wheels were still at the garage door. So luckily they didn't steal those. But it's been shut up for years. Haven't been in there. I get sidetracked way so easily on stories. So we were down there. I was going to work on finishing editing today's video and uploading it. Then I was going to get in the skid steer. I was going to go mow one of the pastures and try to do some more work around the farm. She was going to work in the garage, try to clear it out because we're thinking about either making it a small studio for YouTube videos where I'd have room more to work on vehicles in there. Also, a very, very small garage. Or we were going to use it as a place to park the skid steer and put the attachments up out of the weather until I can build a pole barn. So I get the skid steer, hook a chain to the Dodge because it doesn't start right. It doesn't run right now. We pull it away from the door, open up the doors, walk in, and I heard a meow. And she's like, "What?" I said, "Shh, I hear a cat." And she's like, "No, I don't hear anything." I was like, "Shh." Heard a meow. I meowed back. Heard a loud meow. We went back and forth meowing back at each other. I was trying to find where the meows were coming from. So there was an old snapper ride mower in there, and it sounded like the cat was under the mower deck, like maybe it was a scared kitten or a feral cat or something that had been hunkered down in the garage. It was hiding, looked all under it and everything else. Happened to get like up on my toes and looked behind it, and I saw the cat back behind the mower, curled up, head up, meowing, distressed, just laying there. I'm like, why is it just laying there? Why is it not coming to me? So I started moving stuff out of the way, go to move the mower. Don't hear any meows. Look back over. Cat is just limp on the ground, flat, head down, not meowing. Couldn't even tell if it was breathing. So I'm freaking out. I give her the keys to the house. So I go open the house up, go get a box, a blanket, go get me a pair of my canvas gloves because I don't know this cat from anything. You know, I could pick it up and tear me up. So I pull the lawnmower out of the way, get back there, and the cat is just unresponsive. Like, picked him up. And he's like limp. He kind of growled at me, hissed at me, but he didn't like paw at me or try to attack me. Set him gently in the box. We got him out of the garage, got him to the front of the house. He's just barely breathing, really shallow breathing, in a lot of distress. When I picked him up, I saw he had a lot of dark urine out the backside of him, just like bad. My uncle was a veterinarian, so I know a little bit about veterinary. I looked him over. His paw pads were just dry as could be. We pulled his lip up. His lips were just dry. His nose was dry. His gums were discolored. His tongue was dry. So I'm like, what the heck's going on here? The cat had a collar and a bell on. So I'm like, this is somebody's cat. This is a domestic cat. This is not some feral cat that's just showed up on the farm. Something's up here. So I'm like, he's got to be dehydrated. Maybe it was someone's cat that ran away from home, or they dumped out on the highway, and he didn't know how to survive. He's a house cat. Like, he doesn't know how to get water or how to get food. So maybe he's just been starving to death. Maybe he's gotten dehydrated. He was hunkered down in the garage because it was cool and dark, so he didn't exert any more energy and dehydrate himself anymore. So he got water. Tried to get him to drink. He's just limp, falling over. She's calling emergency veterinary clinics. Like, we can't find anyone. Like, the one in Charlotte and the one in Pineville. Like, we got a 6-7 hour wait. I'm like, this cat might have 10, 30 minutes. I don't know. Veterinarians literally two farms up from me. Called him 3 times. He never answered the phone. I probably should have run up there and knocked on his door. He actually bought my uncle's old veterinary clinic after he died. But just started putting water on my fingers, putting it in the cat's mouth. Finally got it up to hold its head up enough, and it started lapping up water, started drinking water. We're like, all right, good sign. It's starting to get some energy back. We got to drink a little bit more. I said to hell with these veterinarians, we're going to have to help this cat right now because we don't have time to get it anywhere. So she got in the car, ran down the Dollar General, bought a thing of Pedialyte, electrolytes for it, got a can of cat food, some other stuff. And like, I was sitting there, she got a little baby nose sucker and syringe. So I'm sitting there, syringe feeding this cat water. We got water into him. We got the Pedialyte into him. He started trying to get up. He started opening his eyes and meowing. It was, after an hour sitting there with him, we put him in the cool. Finally started getting some response out of him. It was about 3 o'clock at that point. the kid that actually came to look at the Outback wanted to meet me at 4. So we're like, all right, let's pack him up, lock up everything here. We're going to go to my mama's house where the car is sitting for sale in her yard. Met that kid. Cat seemed to be doing a lot better. He test drove the car. We talked it over, came to our agreement. We were done. Cat seemed to like get up and like tried to walk and then collapsed. Like, I don't know if it just exerted all this energy or what, but it got real bad. And like it flopped limp again. And I'm like, oh God, his breathing got a little back shallow again, like kind of labored. So like the hell with it. Let's just go back to Charlotte, head back to Charlotte, and we'll stop at the emergency vet and like, look, you got to do something. So we get to the emergency vet at 6 o'clock. They got a service hold. Both of the vets on service or an emergency service. Like they can't take anybody in. And we're like, what the heck? Where are we going to go with this thing? Luckily, when we got it in there, he started picking his head up and like faintly meowing, like he had some energy, tried to get up again. Literally we're talking to the vet tech there and she was like, yeah, you can try our other office in Rock here. You can go here or here, but like there's a wait and all this stuff. And like right as soon as we were about to walk out the door, the girl at the counter come running up, hang on. One of our other vets just came in at 6 o'clock. She said she can see her right now. So they took him back. It was a boy, to triage, put an IV in him, started working on him. They scanned him for a chip, found he had a chip, found his owner, called the owner, and got in touch with her. She lives in Catawba, like 10 miles away from my farm is. So we don't know how the heck the cat got there. There's no way he walked there. She said the cat been missing since like February 12th. He's been missing for over a month. He's a domestic cat. He was like 16 pounds. When we found him today, he probably weighed 7. Like he was super emaciated, like hadn't been eating, hadn't been drinking, he couldn't fend for himself. Like thinking back now, I'm pretty sure I saw him like a week ago on the farm, but I see feral cats out there all the time. So anytime I try to get near them, they run off anyway. So I thought he was maybe one of the feral cats, but yeah, I think I saw him around my Subarus at one point, and I think I saw him near my tractor. I guess he was okay then, but like I don't know. We talked to the owner that we gave. The vet gave us the owner's phone number. We talked to her on the way leaving the vet, come back to my girlfriend's house, and it was just a good story. The owner got her. Hour later, she talked to us and said Ivy was working. He was doing a lot better. His vitals were coming back up, so it looks like he's going to be okay. I'm just glad we could get the cat back to its owner, and I didn't have to bury a cat today because I was when I first found him, I thought he was literally about to die because he was so bad off. I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do, but so far so good. So far it looks like he's going to recover, and it's going to be a story of a happy ending. I have a 1990 KS4. Love it. The AC and heat blow air, but it's cold in winter and hot in the summer. Where's the best place to start looking? That's a bad problem to have. You're getting cold air in the winter and hot air in the summer. That would make me think that you have multiple issues here, that your air conditioner is not working in the summer, first and foremost. So I would check refrigerant charge. I would check AC compressor functionality, see if the clutch is engaging. If not, see that your refrigerant's moving. You have a sight glass on the left side of the truck, passenger side on that truck. If you look under the dashboard, under the glove box area near where the floor liner is, there's a little black plastic piece. There's a little sight glass in there where you can watch the refrigerant move. I've got a video on air conditioning on my 94 KS4. It should be very similar to your 90. Check that. As far as no heat in the wintertime, I'm assuming these are two separate issues. You likely either have a plugged heater core or, well, it's probably going to be a plugged heater core. If you're low on coolant, you'd have an overheating engine issue. I would check to see if your heater core is plugged. Also check the functionality of your temperature HVAC controls. It's all cable control. If you take off the look underneath the glove box area, there's a panel there. I think I touched on that in the video one of the videos on the AC too. Check that, make sure that slider's moving. I don't remember if they have a heater control valve. They should have a manual heater control valve. It's a control valve in the heater hose that blocks the flow of hot coolant from the heater core. It's to close it off during the summertime so that the heater core's heat doesn't get into the box and dilute the power of your air conditioning system. But it sounds like you might need to flush out or replace your heater core for your heat issue, and you might have a refrigerant charge AC compressor issue for your AC, likely two different issues. Not so much that your air conditioner is blowing during the winter and your heat's blowing during the summer. It's likely that just neither system are working correctly. Okay, Darth Volvo back. There is dye in the system, and I can see the leak bubbling out of the high side connector at the condenser. I actually used genuine Subaru O-rings the second time. Okay, so that's a predicament then. If you can see that the dye and the refrigerant are bubbling out there, and you've used the GM, why do I keep wanting to say GM? The Subaru genuine O-rings, then likely there's some kind of issue there, maybe some buildup, some aluminum corrosion in that bore. Something's going on there that's not wanting to work right. Hard to say. Because I've not really had an issue before where I haven't been able to replace an O-ring at one of those press connections that use an O-ring seal and it not seal it up. So there's got to be some kind of foreign debris, some kind of like little burr, something that's holding that open where it's not getting fully flushed, fully closed, and fully sealed up. All right, let's try to get call way back up because this. I think we had another super chat while I was talking about my cat story. Let's see. Darth Volvo again. P0442 code. Been to 4 mechanics and no fix. Replaced the gas cap. Smoke test showed no leak. Car has a lumpy idle forever. The light usually comes on after I fill up the tank. Love your channel. All right, 442. I can't recall off the top of my head, but it sounds like you're talking about an evap issue. Let's look really quickly. P0442. The president of the vehicle has a small leak in the evap system. All right, if they're doing an evap smoke test and you're passing the smoke test, for mechanics so fix, replace the gas cap. Gas cap's usually a gross or a large leak, not a small leak. Car has a lumpy idle forever, and the light usually comes on after I fill up my tank. You might have an issue with, I'm assuming, fill up all the way to full, not just top up your gas tank. You might have an issue with, guys, the vent. I've seen issues before with evap issues on Subarus where people have an issue where they can't put gas in their tank, or they set the gas pump in and it clicks off immediately, because the way those work is they take a pressure, and when you're filling, if the tank won't take the gas, it backs up in the filler neck. It goes partially into the fuel handle, and there's a little bulb up there. It's got a vacuum in it, and that's what clicks off your gas pump. So if the vent is clogged and it's not taking the fuel, you can have that. That's a different issue than what we're talking about here. If the light's coming on after you have it, and you got a kind of crappy idle, it could be that some fuel has gotten into your charcoal canister. I don't remember what model we're working on again. It was a 2003 Forester. I can't remember on those. I think the charcoal canister on those is behind the passenger rear wheel near the back bumper. That's where the charcoal canister is. And somehow, if you ever or someone had that owned the vehicle before you ever jog the pump, where you get it and it clicks off and you keep pumping, to get the next dollar or whatever. There's a reason why you're not supposed to do that. If you pump too much gas in there, it can overflow into like your vent or your purge lines, and it can get in your charcoal canister. And once fuel gets in your charcoal canister, I'm going back off of stuff from school here because I don't do a lot of evap work. Because normally people are just bringing me head gasket issues, mechanical issues, or other drivability issues. I really don't see a lot of evap diagnosis because I mean I really don't even really have equipment for evap testing outside of if there's a issue with a purge solenoid or something of that nature. But I don't really see a lot of evap issues with Subarus myself. But I have heard issues in the past where people have overfilled their gas pump. Some fuel has gotten into their charcoal canister. It gets trapped there. And it just normally when that happens, though, it gives you rich codes and all this other stuff too, and it runs bad all the time. So the fact that it's like idling all the time, and are you only getting PO442, or are you getting other codes with like rich mixture codes? What do your fuel trims look like? That's some other stuff to take into consideration. And with the 4 other mechanics, no fix, they replace your gas cap, they've smoke tested. What other things have they done in trying to remedy this PO442? Have they changed any other components, or are they just doing smoke tests so we don't find a leak? It's good to go. You could also have an issue with the PCM. I have seen on mainly newer models. I don't know about on 03 Forester particularly. Sorry, I'm starting to get hoarse from talking, but where there's this bad issue. There's just an issue with the PCM where it's throwing a code where there's no code or no issue, or it could be wiring issue. Well, for a small leak, no, it would be the system pressure checking itself. It probably wouldn't be a wiring issue for that. But yeah, another tough one to diagnose without seeing the car in person and putting hands on it and checking some stuff out. I don't see why air oil separator would go into warranty, or is it? Yeah, I'm missing part of this discussion here, but I have seen where Subaru dealerships are trying to avoid people's warranty for putting an air oil separator on the newer direct injection cars for people that are trying to just lessen the amount of carbon buildup on their intake gaskets, that they're avoiding their warranties for doing so. You should have kept the cat. I think it would be better off living with you. Those owners wouldn't have tried as hard as. No, that woman. I think the whole story there was she had 3 cats and they have all disappeared they all disappeared within like a week of each other. And where I'm at, like I said, it's like 10 miles down the road from where she's at. So the cat obviously didn't walk down there. The woman didn't go dump it because like she had it posted everywhere online, had a reward posted for it, tried to pay us a reward for finding it. Someone, I think a neighbor or something maybe, and that's what she's thinking, is maybe a neighbor maliciously like trapped her cats and like took them off and dumped them somewhere because they were indoor outdoor cats, and they think it was a neighbor. No, I got 6 of my own. I really didn't need a 7th, but I'm just happy that he's doing okay and his owner found him. You're my favorite YouTuber right now, hands down. I've done the same thing for a cat and found before. Awesome. Yeah, like, dude, animals, like if it's a dog or a cat, I don't want to see animals suffer. And if it basically wrecked my whole day. It wrecked our whole plans of what we had to do for today, but it all worked out. I got to come on here and do a live stream with you guys, which I've been needing to do for a very long time. I know I didn't get a regular video out. I'm going to try to make it up this week. Maybe try to do a couple shorts, a Wednesday video, and maybe a Friday video. I don't know, before a Sunday video. I don't know. But it all worked out. Tomorrow's another day. I can go back to the farm. I can bush hog tomorrow. I can do whatever. I'm just glad that we found him, because I was actually thinking about going to the farm yesterday on Saturday and doing all this, and we hadn't even thought about working on the garage. And if we went down Saturday and just worked in the pasture on the skid steer and like worked on clearing some trees that we were thinking about, and hadn't even touched the garage, we probably wouldn't have gone back down to the farm today. And if we didn't go down to the farm today, we probably would have never found the cat, and he probably would have died today in that garage. So it all worked out. I lost a day of productivity, but we helped reunite an owner with their pet, and he didn't have to suffer and die. So I'm saying this at the last update from talking to the vet and the owner. So hopefully he's still doing well. Last we talked to him about 2 hours ago. They had IV in him. He was in a little heated blanket, getting him warmed back up because he was in a little bit of shock, but he was doing well then. So hopefully he's still doing well. If I want to just check CVT fluid level on a 2014 Outback, get the fluid up to temperature, cycle the gears, and take the fill plug out, that's correct. You want to have it lifted up. You want to have it lifted up as level as you can get it on jack stands, or if you have a lift, that'd be great. Level surface, don't incline driveway or something like that. No, you got to be on level surface, have the car level on there. Run it till it's warm, should be fine at regular operating temperature for the engine, should be close enough for the temperature of the CVT. Park, reverse, neutral, drive, neutral, reverse, park, go under, pull the plug out. It should just be dribbling out. If nothing comes out, you might want to top it up just a little bit. Or if you take it out and a ton pours out and you're up to temperature and you've gone through it, somehow you become overfilled. If it's ever been serviced before, likely they overfilled it. But yeah, you pull that plug out after doing that, it should just be like a bare little stream coming out. And that's how you know you're good. That should be, the fluid should be right to the bottom of the threads of that plug and just dribbling out. Let's see here. They think something not talked about is the used market. It's so important today. It's so important today, because people can't get new cars and people with less money have to get used. Used EVs would have old battery. Yeah, that's another thing with the EV talk back what we was talking about at the beginning, worrying about the used market. The price that these things are probably going to go for and the amount of maintenance and repairs you might have to do with them within short order of getting one used. That's another big issue that's going to have to, it's a stumbling block, hurdle to get over, whatever you want to call it. Because, I was just out of curiosity because I was trying to make an actual video about the EVs and the STI, and I just couldn't do it without getting ticked off. Today, I've been pretty chill, I think, in my opinion, about what I said earlier about it. But yeah, looking at prices of Teslas, I know Tesla's a premium brand for EVs, but like the Tesla EVs, the Ford EVs, the Mach-E, whatever the heck, stupid fat hatchback Mustang EV wannabe, the Ford Lightning F-150, like all that stuff is extremely expensive. Like there's no $20,000-$30,000 EVs really that are decently sized and decently powered range wise. Like they're all pretty daggone expensive. They're like top line ICE vehicles right now. So like they're gonna have to start coming out with some much more cheaper and affordable EVs if they expect to switch everybody to this. I know Tesla talked about that they were going to make a smaller EV that was supposed to be like sub $30,000, I think was their key market, or maybe it was $20,000. But like they're gonna have to come out with some cheaper options because everybody can't go out and buy like a $60,000 Tesla. It's just not going to happen. Would you recommend an oil catch can on an FB20D? I'm getting a new Crosstrek and heard direct injection can have problems with buildup. Ideally, I would advise an air oil separator or a catch can or something of that nature. The problem is that Subaru is voiding people's warranties when they put this on their new vehicle, which seems insane. Like maybe if you had Subaru install it for you so they know that it's done like professionally. But I don't know. I've heard a lot of stories of people that have been threatened with their warranty being voided or have been straight out told after doing it that, hey, we're going to void your powertrain warranty because you did this modification to your engine. Another super chat real quick. Do you know the correct part number for a 2005 STI Launch Edition coolant temperature sensor? My idle and coolant. God, my voice is getting hoarse. We're probably going to wrap it up here after the next question or two. My idle and coolant temperature gauge are going crazy. Thanks. You're talking about your tachometer and temp gauge. 2015 launch edition. I was about to say there was a 2005 launch edition. I don't know the part number off the top of my head for coolant temp sensor for that. It should be the same as any other STI. Let's switch over real quick to SubaruParts.com and see if I can find that for you real quick. I'm looking at 2015 WRX STI launch edition. We're looking for ECT, engine coolant temperature sensor. Going to look down here, and that is not the correct vernacular they want. Engine coolant temp sensor. Engine coolant temp sensor, temperature sensor, engine coolant temperature, assembly, AV temperature. Part number should be 22630AA230. And that is the temperature sensor in the coolant crossover pipe on top of your engine. Again, Mr. Nuke Tech, that part number should be 22630AA230. Coolant temperature sensor. $56.25 MSRP, found for $44.55 at SubaruParts.com. I'll put that really quickly right now in a comment for you right there. Let's see here. Yes, they definitely are a lot. I think someone responded to you. Have you called the closest Super dealership with VIN and part number information? Yeah, it's crazy. It should not void your warranty, but I have heard stories personally of people that have had their warranties voided or threatened with their warranties being voided. Which CVT cooler would you suggest for a 2017-18? God. It's like the Sahara Desert in here. That was my last week of water. Which CVT cooler would you suggest for 2017 to 2018 Forester XT? And probably I need a thermostat because I'm in winter conditions too. Honestly, I cannot recommend a CVT cooler to you. I have not installed any aftermarket CVT coolers on modern Subaru vehicles. Haven't purchased any. I don't have a good recommendation for you, unfortunately. Hopefully someone in the comments on this video or someone in the live stream can help you point you in the direction of one, but I unfortunately cannot. Question: I have a 2006 Outback 2.5i. At less than 2 miles per hour, the steering is stiff and bogs the engine. Any recommendations on easy fix or to check the diagnosis issue? All right, I'm assuming you've already checked your power steering fluid. You've checked the tension on your belt. You've checked the condition of the fluid. It's not super dirty and dark and brown and burnt smelling, that it's nice and fresh and clean and bright red to pink. There is a switch sensor dealio in the back of the power steering pump where it's supposed to kick your idle up if the AC is on or if you're at low speed moving around. How many miles are on the car? How old is it? Could be a weak or failing power steering pump. Are you hearing any squealing from the pump when it's cold out? Have you checked the O-ring on the suction hose? Have you checked your suction hose? Is your suction hose hard? There's several different things that could be causing an issue with that. I have a blown head gasket. Should I go OEM gasket or aftermarket? I also want to upgrade the head studs for ARP. Turbocharged or naturally aspirated? If you're naturally aspirated, there's no reason to upgrade to the ARP head studs, and there's not really a reason to There's not really a reason to upgrade to ARP head studs, and there's not really a reason to go aftermarket. If you're on a naturally aspirated 2.5, just steer away from the factory single layer coated head gasket that came on the engine. Go look for the, I think it's 1100AA642 part number head gasket, the multi-layer steel, and you should be good, not have an issue. If it is a turbocharged Subaru, you're fine to use the factory gasket and ARP head studs if you want, if you're staying stock. If you're going to modify it, add more boost, all that stuff, look at aftermarket head gaskets from reputable performance shops. I can't remember who my buddy recommends that's got the STI performance shop. God. I've seen them in the shop before. I can't think for the life of me. The performance head gaskets. That's a company that's synonymous with them, like ARP is with head studs. I cannot think for the life of me right now. You're welcome, JB. Glad that I can help you out. All right, so we've got our last question of the night here, and I'm gonna wrap it up here, guys, because I can't keep talking. It's been 2 hours and almost 30 minutes now. On my 98 Justy, what do you think about me putting some seafoam in the crankcase 100 miles before an oil change? I have never personally seafoamed a vehicle ever. The only seafoaming I've ever done is the top engine cleaner stuff, that whole to-do that Subaru sells as a kit. I've done those before. But like as far as seafoam, I've not used. Follow the recommendations on the can, go by that. Get a, or if you want to do an oil flush, you can do that. But go by whatever the directions are on that actual product. I don't know the product. I didn't formulate the product. I haven't used the product, so I can't really tell you exactly how to use it. I don't know if putting in for 100 miles before an oil change is recommended, if that's too much, if maybe it will dilute your oil and possibly cause issues with rod or main bearing. I don't know that much about seafoam again because I haven't used it. But again, check the manufacturer recommendation on it and go from there. It wouldn't hurt to try to flush it out, but likely, unless you have unless you've taken off like the cam cover and see a lot of carbon buildup on the valve train, you likely don't have a lot of buildup in the crankcase either. So it might be for naught. Is it Cobb or Molly? It might have been Molly. I can't recall right now. It's been a stressful day. I'm kind of tired, and I'm just to the end of it here. So, guys, we're down to 89 viewers. I think we peaked at like 208, 210. So most of you are checking out, and I totally understand because I'm about to check out too. Thank you guys so much for coming to the live stream. Thank you so much to you that super chatted me during the live stream. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to me ramble and talk about electric cars and the STI. And sorry that I didn't get to answer a lot of you guys' questions. I kind of rambled and wasn't too good about keeping up with the chat. As I say, every live stream, I'm going to try to do more live stream Q&As. But it seems that like I am horrible at trying to get these to a monthly normal rotationary thing. I say I'm going to try to do it, and then always something happens. And like, I think the last one was in February. So I think we're doing good that we did a live stream in February, and here it is March. So maybe 2022 is the year that we can like monthly do a live stream Q&A or something and help you guys out. But yeah, that's basically it. Bye-bye, STI. You will be missed. It is truly the end of an era for Subaru, and maybe just a big old error for Subaru at the end of the day. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for hanging out. Have a good night, good rest of your Sunday, and hope you have a good week coming up.